CD7.
Chapter 85. Tom Cornwell sits up and wipes at the blood on his face and shirt. His lower legs are still secured by tape. He crawls back into the rear bloody seat of the Yukon, finds the cutting tool, goes back out to the parking lot, works at his legs. There's a man dying in the front seat, gurgling and coughing, and Tom doesn't want to be near him. There. The tape is off, and Tom works to free the little girl. She's bawling, and he has no idea who she is. Another kidnap victim? And once her tape is off, she gets up and runs away, screaming. Tom sees a man on the ground, legs and arms splayed out, and he scrambles over and sees the man's eyes are open, and his mouth is slowly opening and closing, like a fish out of water, slowly suffocating. His white dress shirt is soaked with blood. He has closely trimmed white hair and beard, and moments ago, he was standing next to his wife, Amy. "Sir, I'm Tom Cornwell," he gasps out. I'm so sorry this happened, I swear to God." Tom leans over as the man softly speaks. "I'm sorry, too, that I can't answer your questions, Mr. Cornwell. But I think you might have enough for a book, eh?" The man closes his eyes. A man of his name, George, is driving the second Yukon, and the screaming little girl is in Pelayo's lap, and he turns to the rear and says, "My father! Did you see my father?" Casper is there, pistol in his right hand. "Hefe, I saw him fall. I saw blood on his chest." The girl is still screaming, and Pelayo slaps his hand over the brat's mouth. "Good," he says, as the girl squirms and struggles on his lap. Casper sharply says, "Good? For real, Hefe?" Pelayo yells to George, "Drive faster, fool!" The young man swerves the Yukon around a group of children standing in the middle of the parking lot and speeds to the gate.
I've dumped the silly flip-flops and I'm racing across the hot asphalt of the parking lot, then the grass, then the parking lot again, my Sig Sauer in my right hand, running, not letting the Yukon out of my sight. The black vehicle suddenly stops in front of a group of laughing children, swerves, and then picks up speed. Running. People are watching and pointing at the chunky woman spilling out of her teeny tiny bikini, running, holding a pistol in her hands, and I ignore them all. The Yukon is heading right toward the gate. Running. Should I stop? Aim for the tires? Can I do that? But this is no thriller novel. No blow-em-up movie, no cop show on TV where the hero can be 100 yards away and carefully shoot out the rear tires of a racing vehicle. I'm scared, I'm angry, and if I stand and try to shoot, I might take out a tire or a taillight or a high-speed round from my hand. My weapon could break through the rear window of the Yukon and kill my little girl. I don't stop. I keep on running. Will somebody call the police after seeing the shootout? Will the cavalry ride to the rescue? Of course not. This artificial community created by drug money has no police. Running. The Yukon makes a turn to the right, and I brake right as well, and I screech as my right foot is sliced open by something, but I don't care. Now, the Yukon has stopped. Finally. A hand emerges from the left side, works a keypad. Running. A stitch starts stabbing hard at my left side. The pistol feels like it weighs a ton. My breathing is harsh and ragged. "Denise!" I scream. The gate ahead starts rattling to the right. The taillights of the Yukon blink as the driver takes his foot off the brakes. In a few seconds, the SUV with my kidnapped daughter aboard will quietly go out into traffic and then disappear. "Denise!" I bring up my pistol, but it feels useless. I'm too far away. I'm not going to make it. "Denise!" I scream one more time. Oh God, I'm not going to make it.
Chapter 86. George brings his arm in and the gate starts moving, and Pelayo is confident it will all work out. In just a few minutes, he'll be at a private airstrip to the northeast of Beachside, and with Casper and this little girl with him, they'll head back south to Mexico. There he'll regroup and think things through. This little girl is still crying, and struggling. As for her, well, he knows that objects can be sent via delivery systems to nearly anywhere in the United States. A small shipping container with frozen dry ice would keep something fresh for several days, until it got to a certain army captain's home. Fresh, like a little girl's head. The gate is open, but the way is blocked by a steady stream of tourists and beachgoers. And Casper calmly says, "The Cornwall woman is back there running at us." "George!" Pelayo yells. "Move!" The driver honks the horn. The line of people moves to the left and right, except for one tired-looking, short-haired woman, carrying a folded beach umbrella over her shoulder. The woman doesn't move. Casper says, "She's coming closer." Pelayo leans again, pushes the horn again. The woman stares and stares at them, and then looks behind the SUV and back to them. Pelayo pushes the horn, tells George, "Move! Drive over her if you have to." Then the woman finally moves to the left, drops the beach umbrella, and pulls out a pump-action shotgun.
For some reason, the Yukon isn't moving, and my heart leaps as with each passing second I get closer and closer. Damn it, I'm still not going to make it. The Yukon honks its horn once, twice, and then I see a woman move around with short hair, wearing tan shorts and a white t-shirt, and she looks vaguely familiar, and the beach umbrella drops, and what the hell? A pump-action shotgun is now in the woman's hands. And I now recognize her. Vasquez, the CID officer with her hair shorn. I had taken her pistol, but now she's rearmed herself. Here? To arrest me? It's not going to happen. I make a split-second decision, turning my Sig Sauer in her direction. But she's faster. The shotgun is up and aimed. I don't care. I've turned into a cold-hearted bitch, and I warned her to stay away and told her what would happen if she showed up. I start pulling the trigger, but her shotgun isn't pointed at me. It's aimed at the Yukon.
The strange woman with the shotgun fires once, boom, and the Yukon shudders, and there are two more booming gunshots as the woman takes out both the engine and the two front tires. The engine rattles and dies, red lights appear on the instrument panel, and he yells to George, "Shoot her! Shoot her! Shoot her!" George lowers the window, brings up his pistol, and Pelayo does the same on his side. Before George can shoot, the woman shoots again, hitting the side of the door, tossing George back. Pelayo gets off one shot that is insanely loud in the Yukon's interior, and the girl is screaming and forces herself to the rear, and Casper grabs her around the waist, forcing the right rear door open. Pelayo jumps out, leaving George behind, who's now crying with pain, and he leans over the right fender, firing off 3 shots. The woman with the shotgun spins around and falls to the pavement. Beyond her, people are running away, screaming, and a couple of cars have collided by the fountain in their attempt to drive away. The glass to the passenger door shatters as another gunshot rings out, and Casper yells, "The army woman is coming!" Pelayo whirls, sees the crazed woman coming at them, pistol out in front of her, and Pelayo yells, "Move!" He breaks away from the Yukon, starts running to a small clump of people, knowing he can slip through them, make a phone call, and then get out of here before the county sheriff or state police roar up. Another shot snaps out, something stings his leg, but he won't break stride. He needs to get out of there. Now. Pelayo turns, sees Casper breathing hard, trying to catch up, still holding that little brat in his arms, and he calls back, "Shoot her! Shoot her and get going!" He keeps on running, hears the nearby crack of a gunshot, flips back one more time, sees the crumpled form of the little girl on the ground, Casper now racing faster, and Pelayo thinks, "Yes, we're going to make it!" The crowd ahead moves apart to let him and Casper escape. Behind him, he hears a woman screaming. Good.
Chapter 87. My feet are sore and bleeding, and I could give a shit. I race past the Yukon, turn, And there's Pelayo and another man holding my Denise, and I break to a halt, bring up my pistol, and I'm about to scream, "Stop!" But before I can do that, the man lifts up his own pistol to my daughter's head, pulls the trigger. My daughter flops. He drops her to the ground. I scream so loud I can't hear myself.
Rosaria Vasquez thinks, "Christ, this hurts more than I could ever imagine. Will it ever stop?" She's looking up at the blue sky, some palm tree fronds, and she thinks, well, good planning. Earlier, she stopped to get her hair closely trimmed to disguise herself and to purchase a Remington 12-gauge pump-action shotgun because she no longer trusted anyone in this screwy case, and Amy Cornwall had taken her pistol back at the library. But maybe she should have gotten a bulletproof vest. That would have made some sense. She moans, "Jesus, is her chest ever going to stop hurting?" Tom Cornwall is moving toward where he last saw the Yukon driving away, with his wife Amy in full pursuit when he hears Amy yelling, "Denise! Denise!" And then gunshots, and then a full-throated scream from his wife. He starts running harder.
I'm sobbing, yelling, and I feel like I'm going to lose control of my bladder and bowels as I approach the still form of my little girl. "Oh, Denise." I drop to my knees, scraping them hard, and my girl's head is blackened, and there's blood, and I can't see anymore. I'm crying so very, very hard. "Denise." I reach down and touch my little girl. And, "Mommy?" I break out in one more loud sob. She's sitting up, rubbing at the side of her face. "Mommy, my ear hurts. It hurts a lot." I grab her and squeeze her hard. And if I could, I wouldn't move for the rest of the week. She says, "Oh, Mommy, you're squeezing me too hard." I ignore her, refuse to let her go.
Chapter 88. It hurts too much to do anything, including keeping her eyes open, and then there's a dim voice above her. "Special Agent Vasquez? Can you hear me?" Rosaria manages to get her right eye open. It sort of focuses in, and there's a woman looking down at her, wearing a skimpy bathing suit. "Yeah, I can hear you," she says. "Oh, Captain Cornwall, is that you?" Yes. And now the captain is holding her left hand. "Damn, girl, why are you in a bathing suit?" Her hand is squeezed. "A long story, Vasquez." "Then save it for later."
I'm holding Special Agent Vasquez's left hand, and my other arm is tight around my brave little girl, Denise, who isn't sobbing but who's running a hand over and over her scorched hair, near where the muzzle blast of that man's pistol had passed through. Sirens are in the distance, and there's a circle of people watching us, lots using their cell phones to record this horrible scene. Tom races up, clothes bloody, and he kneels down next to me, starts squeezing Denise as well. We're finally together. "Vasquez," I say, "why did you do it? Why did you come here?" Her right eye is the only one open, even with the bullet wounds in her chest and her soaking wet t-shirt from her spilling blood. The haircut makes her look 10 years younger and oh so vulnerable. "I told you, back at the library, I wanted to help. You and your family." "You could have done that by staying away or going back to Quantico." Her eye flutters shut, opens up again. She manages a smile. Her lower lip is frothy red with blood. "That would be running away, and I wasn't going to do that. I have no family. I thought for a long time the army was my family. I was so wrong. They kicked me to the curb like a piece of trash." Tom has an arm around me. The sirens are getting louder. I squeeze her hand again. "Hang on, Vasquez, the EMTs are coming, hang on." She says, Captain, I need to warn you. I need to tell you something. A long, drawn-out wheeze. Tom says, "Isn't there anything we can do?" "Be quiet," I say to him, and then squeeze her hand again. "Vasquez, what is it? What do you want to warn me about?" Her other eye opens up, and both eyes wander and then lock in on me. "Captain, is that your husband? Your daughter? Your family?" Yes, it is," I say. "Oh, so beautiful," she whispers. "So beautiful." Her eyes close, and then she's gone.
Chapter 89. In his Army career, Major Bruno Wenner has seen lots of odd things. But he's sure this afternoon's meeting is going to be one of the strangest events he's ever seen. 3 days after a firefight in Florida brought everything about Captain Amy Cornwall to a fiery head. He and 5 others are in a small, secure conference room in Fort Belvoir, and they are all waiting on Captain Amy Cornwall, who should have been here 5 minutes ago. At the head of the table is his boss, Lieutenant Colonel Hugh Denton, in dress uniform, and with each passing minute of Cornwall's absence, his face grows redder and redder. At his left are a colonel and brigadier general from the Judge Advocate Group, a male and female, and across the table are 3 quiet men in expensive-looking dark gray suits, white shirts, and red neckties, like they had been dispatched from some government central tailor shop. The near man, with a pair of horn-rimmed spectacles and blinking eyes that make him look like an owl, says he's from the Department of Defense. In the middle is a quiet man, with closely trimmed dark brown hair, who says he's from the FBI. And the last civilian looks bored, and has a dark tan, and claims he's an observer from the Department of the Army. Nobody in the room believes the last man is from the Department of the Army. Wenner is guessing that he's CIA, but keeps his guess to himself. He's sitting to the right and rear of Colonel Denton. General Sawyer looks to Colonel Denton, and then her watch. "Well, where is she?" "She should be here any minute," the general says. "Give her 5 more minutes, then send out some MPs to drag her sorry ass in here." "Yes, ma'am," Denton says. And he turns and glares at Wenner, like it's his fault that Captain Cornwall hasn't shown up. Wenner looks away, and then there's a rap at the door. It opens up, and Captain Cornwall comes in, cover in hand, saying, "My apologies, Colonel Denton and everyone else. I was unavoidably delayed." "Sit down, Captain Cornwall," Denton snaps out. And Cornwall sits at the end of the polished conference room table, moving slowly, her feet bandaged. Wenner knows. She looks impressive in her uniform, with the badges and ribbons, and Wenner feels sorry for her. Based on the bloody and wild trip she had through the American South, the captain will eventually exchange that uniform for the dull khakis of a prison uniform at Leavenworth. The room has 1 door, no windows, and just the table and chairs. There are no photos, paintings, or anything else to cheer up this cheerless room. And Wenner thinks that's part of the plan, for nothing good is going to happen here. General Sawyer says, "All right, we'll begin this session. Now that Captain Cornwall has joined us, I'll remind everyone again in this room that there's to be no recording, note-taking, or any other official record of what transpires here. Am I clear?" The only person who says anything is Cornwall, who nods and says, "I understand, ma'am." Sawyer says, "Again, I want to remind you, Captain Cornwall, that you are appearing here by yourself, without counsel, and that you agree to this circumstance." "Yes, ma'am." Sawyer clasps her hands and says to her fellow JAG officer, "Colonel Patrick, let's begin with a narrative and list of particulars." Colonel Patrick starts reading from several sheets of paper, and the room is so silent that Wenner can hear the traffic outside and the overhead thrum of a helicopter. At each pause in the narrative, General Sawyer looks to the captain and says, "Is that true, Captain?" "Yes, ma'am." The list of particulars goes on, assaulting a Tennessee state trooper, stealing license plates, crossing state lines for the purpose of committing offenses under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and then the first big one. "In the town of Three Rivers, Texas, that you shot and killed Ramon Hernandez, a citizen of Mexico." Yes, sir, that's correct. In the town of Three Rivers, Texas, that you shot and killed Pepe Torres, a citizen of Mexico. Yes, sir, that's correct. In the town of Three Rivers, Texas, that you kidnapped Javier Abud, a citizen of Mexico. That's correct, sir, she says again, in the same flat tone of voice. That you did transport Javier Abud across state lines. That's correct, sir. That at the public library in Victoria, Texas, you did assault Special Agent Rosaria Vasquez of the CID. Only then is there a change, as Cornwall's voice seems to catch. And then she says, That's correct, sir. The long list of particulars then finally ends 5 minutes later, in Beachside, Florida, where it is charged that Captain Amy Cornwall illegally fired a non-registered weapon within the city limits. Yes, that's correct, she says. And finally, Colonel Patrick says, while these alleged offenses were taking place, you, Captain Amy Cornwall, were absent without leave. Cornwall changes her response and says, Well, that's pretty damn self-evident, isn't it? The civilian men smile, but the Army side of the table is not amused. General Sawyer says, Captain Cornwall, these are incredibly serious charges. I appreciate your willingness to come forward and accept your responsibility, but this is highly unusual. Cornwall says, Ma'am, it certainly is highly unusual, and I thank you and Colonel Denton for arranging this session. Now, may I ask your indulgence to speak for 5 minutes? General Sawyer says, Colonel Denton, do you mind? His fists are clenched on the table. No, he finally says. Not at all. Good, Sawyer says. Captain Cornwall, proceed, and I hope you choose your words carefully because at this moment you're looking at a life sentence in Leavenworth. Do you understand? Yes, ma'am. And you intend to make this statement by yourself and with no counsel? Yes, ma'am. General Sawyer says, Then you may proceed. Cornwall says, Ma'am, all of these events occurred while I was in the process of rescuing my family. And the general gently raps a knuckle on the table. I'm sorry, Captain, that's not the Army's concern. Do you have anything else to say? The room is silent. Cornwall's face looks like it's been carved out of cold, gray granite. You bet your ass I do, she says. General.
Chapter 90. Maybe the people in this closed and stuffy office think they're going to intimidate me, but I doubt any of them, with the exception of one, has ever been in a shelter at an FOB in Afghanistan, knowing you're completely surrounded by enemies who would delight in slitting your throat. So I have nothing to lose. My career in the Army is about to crash in one big, impressive ball of flame and debris, and the next 5 minutes will determine whether there's going to be a surviving parachute or not. I say, General, my apologies for the last statement. I wanted to make sure you and everyone else in this room are paying attention. With a dry tone in her voice, the general says, I think you can count on that. Proceed. You have your 5 minutes. I look at each and every face, including my boss, Colonel Denton, who looks like he wants to leap across the table and throttle me. And I say, this entire series of events began at FOB Healy in Afghanistan. A number of months ago, a prisoner in my custody, Mohammed Noor, was found dead in his holding cell. At the time, Mr. Noor claimed to have been a simple farmer, but later research on my part revealed that he was an agronomy expert who was in the employ of a transnational organization called Mercador Holdings. Everyone is paying attention, but it seems the near civilian, with a deep tan, is now paying strict attention indeed. Mercador Holdings is linked to a Mexican criminal organization, the Veracruz Cartel. Members of this cartel kidnapped my husband and daughter 6 days ago from our home. I was then contacted by the head of the cartel, a Pelayo Abud, who at the time was based in Beachside, Florida. In exchange for me kidnapping an individual in the custody of a competing cartel, the El Baja cartel, and bringing him to Abud in Florida, my husband and Denise would be released. One of the civilian males says, And you didn't contact the CID? Or FBI? No, I say. I was specifically warned not to do so. I had no choice. It was my husband and daughter. But why were they taken? And how were you involved? The same civilian asks. My husband Tom is a journalist. He was working on a book about the international drug trade, the cartels, and the banks that support them. His work took him to the El Baja cartel. They offered him a former bank official as a news source that knew the intricacies of their rival, the Veracruz cartel. They did this in the hope of crippling their competition. But Aboud of the Veracruz cartel acted first, kidnapping my family and having me, in turn, kidnap the news source to bring him to Aboud. And this news source was Pelayo Aboud's father, Javier? General Sawyer asks. Yes, ma'am, I reply. Who was killed in the shootout at Beachside? Yes, ma'am. Said shooting also resulting in the death of Warrant Officer Rosaria Vasquez, a special agent with the CID who has been investigating you and your travels? The general asks. Yes, ma'am. She looks at her watch again. This is all fascinating, but... General? Yes? I think of the last few minutes and the phone call I had received that had caused me to be late. The unexpected phone call had come from Freddie, a.k.a. Major Frederica West, executive officer for the 2nd Ranger Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment, who had said, I know your fat ass is in one tight sling, and I'm here to free it up, so just listen. Which is what I did. I say, General, information has come to me concerning more in-depth intelligence about the 2 cartels, the Afghan farmer who was killed while in my custody, how and why Warrant Officer Vasquez was given information to track me, and how this is all connected. May I proceed?
Major Wenner is leaning forward, just to the side of Colonel Denton, listening to Captain Cornwall. To him, she seems like some sort of robot or android, reciting bits of information over and over again in a flat and emotionless tone, even though it will do her no good. And then General Sawyer says, Yes, you may proceed. Cornwall is now staring right in the direction of her superior officer, Colonel Denton, and Wenner feels like the chair he's sitting in has suddenly compressed around him, not allowing him to move an inch. Cornwall says, At the initial investigation back in Afghanistan, the farmer named Mohammed Noor was in the possession of a business card with the name of Mercador Holdings and a phone number based in Mexico. At the time, I requested the information on this business card be traced. I was told the company name and the phone number were fake. Wenner can't breathe anymore, and even Denton is stiff and unmoving next to him. That information was wrong, Cornwall says. The person conducting that research at FOB Healy was hiding the real information from me and the Army. The person who did that is in the employ of the El Baja cartel, and has been so for more than a year. General Sawyer says, Who is it? Cornwall continues her long and deep stare. Major Bruno Wenner, she says, who was with my unit in Afghanistan at the time.
Chapter 91. I have to give the traitorous son of a bitch credit, for he doesn't flinch or raise his eyebrows or even yell at me. He just keeps sitting there, to the right and slightly behind our mutual boss, Colonel Hugh Denton. Colonel Denton starts to speak, but General Sawyer cuts him off. That's a pretty serious accusation, Captain Cornwall. I know, I say. From my coat pocket, I remove a small thumb drive, which I put on the shiny surface of the conference room table, and which contains an info dump from my dear friend Freddie. On this thumb drive is a video excerpt from a classified surveillance system at FOB Healy. This particular system was observing the only entrance and exit into the server system room that supported the surveillance stations covering all of the interrogation cells located at the base. Major Wenner is shown entering this room and departing 60 seconds later. Maintenance records show that the camera aimed at Mr. Noor's cell failed at this time, and that he was beaten to death shortly thereafter. I refuse to look in Wenner's direction. I say, also on this thumb drive are documents, bank statements, and records of phone conversations between cartel representatives and Major Wenner, who has an anonymous numbered bank account in the Cayman Islands. The Major was also receiving payments from banks representing both the El Baja and Veracruz cartels. He was playing both ends against the middle. If you excuse the phrasing, Captain Wenner was making a killing. No word from anyone. I say, as part of this arrangement, Major Wenner was also giving information he gathered from both cartels to Senior Warrant Officer Fred McCarthy of the CID in Quantico, who in turn was passing it to Warrant Officer Vasquez. If Vasquez had succeeded in her mission to halt me from freeing the older Mr. Aboud, Major Wenner was to be handsomely compensated by the El Baja cartel. If not, his additional compensation would have come from the Veracruz cartel. Payment would have been made no matter what. The silence is deathly still. One of the civilians, the nearest one with the heavy tan, is slowly moving his chair back. Finally, I learned yesterday that the body of Lieutenant Preston Baker of my unit was found in a wooded area on this base, an apparent suicide. Lieutenant Baker served with me in Afghanistan and provided me with vital information concerning my prisoner's connection to Mercador Holdings. I would suggest that the appropriate investigators re-examine the circumstances of his death with a close look at Captain Wenner's whereabouts at the time of the shooting.
Wenner tenses up. The facade he's carefully built over the years to suffer through his military service and leave with a fat bank account has just been blown away, like a Texas trailer park in the middle of a tornado. No time to think of how temptation came his way, how he gladly seized the temptation with both hands, and how he had planned to leave the army when his latest term of service was up, and then disappear forever. Again, no time to think. Just burst out of his chair and haul ass before anyone can react. A good run will take him to his car, and then he can roar out before word gets to the gate to block him from leaving. A heavy hand is on his shoulder, squeezing hard. Wenner turns. It's the tanned man that he's certain is from the CIA, and the man leans into him and says, "Move out of this chair, and I'll snap your neck, son."
The two civilians at the desk look stunned. Colonel Denton is slumped in his chair. General Sawyer and Colonel Patrick from JAG are looking at each other as if to say, "What now?" And Major Wenner is sitting like a carved chunk of wood, face pale. And the tanned civilian man has a hand squeezing his right shoulder. That man is looking at me with hard and knowledgeable eyes. I clear my throat. Any questions?
Chapter 92. Pelayo Aboud wakes up with a start, wondering where he is, and then he instantly relaxes. He's in a luxurious leather seat in one of his several private jets, somewhere over Mexican airspace. He sighs. At his side is a tumbler of Buchanan's whiskey and ice cubes. And he picks it up and takes a satisfying sip. His usual drink is native Coca-Cola, but this drink is part of a celebration. He made it out of the States just an hour ago, having spent 3 days hiding out at a private airfield near Beachside, and having the wound in his lower right leg cleaned and dressed. A lot of things went to hell, but he's alive and breathing and on this jet, and there's plenty of good work waiting to be done. Across from him, also sitting in the same type of deep leather seat, is Casper Correri, who is reading the day's Miami Herald. Pelayo reaches out with a foot, gently kicks Casper's shin. He looks up. "Yes, Effie? How soon before we land?" Casper looks at his big watch. "About 10 minutes, Effie." "Very good." He looks over at the mountainous and rough terrain of his home nation, and thinks of the riches he and others have managed to wrest from this desperate land. Despite the setbacks, his crew will soon be doing the same in Afghanistan. That poor nation produces 90% of the world's opium, and Pelayo plans to grab his share and expand his market beyond the Americas. He finishes his drink. A very small part of him wishes the old man was alive to see what his cursed son has been able to do. And a very large part of him is looking forward to letting the other cartels and other family members know that he, Pelayo Aboud, would never, ever give up in his quest. There's a soft thump thump as the landing gear is lowered, and Pelayo puts the empty glass down, tightens his seatbelt. He says, "You did good work there in Beachside, keeping your cool, doing what had to be done." Casper says, "Thank you, Jefe. But we lost so much. Several of our workers, sensitive communications equipment, and too many questions being raised about the resort and its financing." Pelayo leans over, gently pats Casper's closest leg. "Minor issues, that is all. All great firms, all great concerns like ours can afford to suffer the occasional setback. And with you at my side, well, you did well in shooting that little girl." Casper stays quiet, folds up the newspaper, carefully puts it at his side. Pelayo says, "Tomorrow, a special project, just for you." "Yes?" "Track down the Cornwalls, find out where they are, kill them both. Use whatever resources you need, but don't take too much time. I want that matter settled." "All right. Save their heads," Pelayo says with relish, remembering his earlier plan for that young Denise Cornwall. "Freeze them. We will send them to their respective superiors." "As you wish, Jefe." Pelayo looks out again, sees the wide and long pavement of the runway. He loves his life. Chapter 93. At a remote lake in central Maine, Tom Cornwall is sitting in an old gray Adirondack chair, watching his family at play. Denise and Amy are swimming and splashing each other, squealing and laughing. There's a small dock with a pontoon boat tied up to it, and a comfortable cottage that has a wonderful view of the lake and the nearby mountains. There are other residents on the lake who wave at them as they take the pontoon boat out, or as they walk side by side along the dirt roads linking the cottages on this rural shore. His wrist itches. He gently traces his fingers over the bandages, wondering how his burnt skin is healing, wondering how the sickness inside of him is healing as well. The past days have been a blur of packing, flying, driving, and getting used to this slice of country paradise. And along the way, apologies, apologies, apologies. He apologized to Amy the day he and Denise were rescued at Beachside, and the day after that, and the day after that. Each time Amy has given him a slim smile and said, "That's nice, Tom, we'll talk later." He wonders when and how later will come, and if the sickness inside of him will ever go away. He looks at his fingers, tracing the bandage on his arm, the fingers that held that cutting tool, killing the young Afghan who had been ready to kill him. One of the many surprises during these past days is feeling no regret or guilt at having done that. Denise squeals one more time, and then the two of them step out of the water, and Amy wraps Denise in a thick blue towel, rubs herself down with another blue towel, then drops the towel and runs up to Tom, wearing a conservative one-piece dark red bathing suit. He has a brief memory of seeing her wearing that skimpy bikini, her eyes swollen and red, her feet bleeding, her hands shaking. Amy comes up to him and suddenly sits in his lap. "Hey," she says. "Hey," he says, putting his arms around her. With her wet bathing suit, she has instantly dampened his shorts and t-shirt, but he won't say a word about it. He hugs her, and he whispers, "Amy, I'm sorry. I betrayed you. I put Denise in harm's way, and—" Amy gently pulls his head into her side and says in reply, "Tom, I betrayed you too."
When I come out of the lake, I see Tom's sad face and decide it's time to settle things. I plop myself in his lap, and for the 10th or 20th time, he apologizes to me, and I think I surprise him when I apologize in return. He pulls his head away, looks up at me. "Apologize? For betraying? What do you mean?" I stroke his hair, When we first got married, you asked me never to dig into your work or your computer files. I did that. I had to do that. But I broke a promise. I'm sorry. His eyes well up. Amy, compared to what I did, what lies I told, that's nothing. I was desperate for a book deal. I paid money for a dark web search. I never asked for a specific search for you or your unit. The facts I learned, they just came up, and I followed them. I continue lightly stroking his hair, and he says, if I knew what would happen. I lower my hand, put a finger to his lips. Shh, we're done. I forgive you. I forgive you, he says, voice shaky. Good, I say. A helicopter slowly flies over the lake, and it fills me with happiness, knowing there's a sniper aboard, keeping an eye on the lake and the surrounding cottages. Out in the woods and on the rural roads and dirt trails, armed U.S. Marshals are keeping watch over me and my family. And for the future? The Army is gone for me. But when I left that conference room, the deeply tanned man who had kept Major Wenner in place slipped me a plain white business card with a Virginia phone number. I like your style, the tanned man said. Give me a call anytime. I hug Tom once more, look at my little girl peacefully playing in the lake sand, and I think of Rosaria, dying back there in Florida, saving me, saving my family. I will never forget her, and I will always protect my family. Tom says, What now, hon? Now, I ask. Now we relax. We have fun, we sleep late. You find another book project to work on, and me? Well, we'll see. But one more thing. What's that? He asks. Never, ever do anything like this again, Tom Cornwall, I say, or I'll kill you and make it look like an accident. A hesitant smile comes across my beloved's face. That's one heck of a threat, he says. I kiss his forehead. Tom, you know me by now, I say. I don't make threats. I make promises.
Chapter 94. The Learjet slowly taxis into a large and nearby empty hangar, and Pelayo glances out, sees a line of his men out there, waiting for him. The engines wind down, and a stairway is wheeled up. A member of the flight crew unlatches the door, and Pelayo nearly prances down the stairs. Home, safe, and ready to go back to work. Casper is behind them, and he strolls to his men, looks around for one of his armored Ford Expedition SUVs to take him to one of his expensive ranches. There are no vehicles in the hangar. Just his men and Casper and the jet. He turns to Casper. What's going on? A readjustment, comes a voice, and Pelayo turns as a man emerges through the line of those he has paid, has trained, and once trusted. The slim man wears cowboy boots, blue jeans, and a plain white shirt. The man's skin is the same color as his own. His hair is black, but unlike Pelayo, this man has a closely trimmed beard. Hello, cousin, the man says. Pelayo feels like one of those carnival balloons, the helium emptying out, making the firm shape collapse upon itself, dying, and never to recover. Miguel, he says. Pelayo! His cousin nods. Once more, back to Casper. Why? He asks. Casper spits on the concrete floor. I have done so much for you, bloody year after bloody year, always at your side. But you became crazed, looking to kill your father, crazed with your plans to go to Afghanistan. Afghanistan! And then you asked me to shoot a little girl as young as my own. He steps forward, spits again, close to Pelayo's boots. I'm done with you, Aboud. And so is everyone else. Pelayo slowly turns back to his smiling cousin. Please, Pelayo says. Make it quick. At some point, Pelayo regains consciousness. His life now is nothing but pain, pain, and more pain. He is naked, secured in a heavy metal chair, and his chest is one burning mass, where one by one, Miguel invited Pelayo's lieutenants to come up with a knife and carve their initials into his chest. All he knows is that he's in a small basement below the aircraft hangar's floor. He moans, looks down to his bound wrists. There are only 7 fingers left. His right eye blinks away a bloodstream. His left eye. He moans again and sees the little metal table next to him with various tools, instruments, and razor-sharp knives. Resting in a bloody patch of gauze is his left eye. Miguel comes into view, smiling, wiping his hands dry with a cloth. A chest-high leather apron covers most of his clothing. He steps forward, caresses Pelayo's cheek. Please, Pelayo begs, whispering around his broken teeth and sliced tongue. Please, make it quick. Miguel says, I will, cousin. But you know how religious I am, don't you? Pelayo says nothing, and then screams as Miguel slaps the bloody stumps on his left hand. Yes, I know you are a religious man. Please, Miguel, please, end it. Miguel leans down. I will, but I believe in my Lord God. I believe He was the creator of all things, and I believe He created this world in 6 days. He steps out of view and comes back with a large propane blowtorch, which he lights and starts to lower to Pelayo's waist. Which is why I'm going to take 6 days to end your world, cousin.
Chapter 95. On a sunny, breezy day in this part of Virginia, my family and I followed the directions given to us earlier. It's a breathtaking and melancholy sight. All the rows of simple tombstones, stretching out beyond us at every view, scattered here and there among trees whose branches look like they wish they were larger to provide shade and comfort to all who rest here. I'm in the middle, Tom holding my left hand, Denise holding my right. And during our long walk along a paved lane, Tom gives my hand a squeeze, and I turn and see a horse-drawn carriage with slowly walking soldiers flanking it. A flag-draped coffin being drawn to its final resting place, the collection of grieving family members barely visible in the distance. Here we go, I say, as we leave the narrow road and pass through another lane of gravestones, to one that's fairly new. We pause there for a moment, looking down at the stone and the carved cross, and her name, Rosario Vasquez, and under that, CW2, followed by U.S. Army, and below that the short range of dates that marked her brief life. I stand with my husband and daughter for a few minutes more, my eyes blurry, and then I reach down and caress the smooth top of the stone. Rosaria, I whisper. Thank you, sister. Welcome to my family.
Belinda hopes you enjoyed the reading of Out of Sight, written by James Patterson and Brendan Du Bois, and read by Lauren Fortgang and Eduardo Ballerini. Our audiobooks are becoming increasingly popular among travellers, families, and people who are on the go. If you really enjoyed this audiobook, please introduce your friends and family to the experience. We're sure they'll love you for it. If you want to hear more about our fabulous range of titles, please visit us online at belinda.com. Thanks for listening, and remember to always take a Belinda audiobook with you.